Welcome to Winning Inside, the show where we follow the journey from feeling defeated to winning. Here are your hosts, Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman.
Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Winning Inside podcast, where we discuss real issues, insights, and solutions with each other and guests to help you thrive in your day-to-day lives. We know life happens, and we can choose to be a spectator or a participant.
These conversations and stories are about the participants, the ones who made the choice to do the inner work and found a way to keep moving forward. So, hey, Cheddy.
Michelle, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I sound a little tentative with saying that, but it's to share with our listeners. I have been involved in a gym challenge for the last 60 days, and I will definitely talk about it in the next podcast. But we'll talk about it in terms of the people that you surround yourself with and how important it is for your goals. And I love that conversation. I think it's so key. But for this week, it's pretty relevant to some current events and whatnot. Honestly, it's relevant every single week for current events.
Yes.
But this week, in terms of even our lives, it's relevant. And it's the idea of extending grace to yourself.
Even better. Yes.
Yeah.
Self-grace.
That's right.
That. Because we have a habit of extending grace to so many people, yet not doing it to ourselves. And why
Correct.
do we believe we're not deserving of that same grace that we extend to others? So it's actually a good thing for us to extend grace to the person that you're around the most all the time. Yourself. And the person that was overlooked the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds strange that we would even have to have this conversation. But when you think about it, I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this weekend, of being so hard on myself and telling myself off and getting down on myself. And I'm like, wait. And I had to tell myself, I do the whole Cheddy and Ched thing. Ched, would you do that to somebody else? I was like, of course not. And it was almost like I had to say, well, why are you doing it to yourself? And I had to check myself on that. And then not only that, as always, the soul whisperer did the same thing. And she checked me on that. But it makes you think it's a point to grow on. And you realize you have to extend grace to yourself, or else you extending grace to others is all for naught. I mean, you're a human being as well. You're an individual as well. You're a person of value as well. So you require the same grace that we give to others. I mean, what do you think about that, Michelle?
Well, I think, it's so automatic. And first of all, everybody's relationship with this concept is going to be very nuanced, right? So we're very different. And I know you and I have clearly had plenty of conversations around this and have been coached by others and have coached others as well. Yeah. It is this idea, about how do we get ourselves to show up in the way that we want to show up in this world? And if and when we fail, how do we handle those conversations with ourselves? So there's the elements of perfectionism in here. There's the elements of self-talk and the inner critic that you and I have discussed in our previous podcast that's in here. And then there's the idea of, self-forgiveness that's in here as well. And so that extension of grace really kind of summarizes all of those parts, because extension of grace is when it's not just when you need to forgive yourself, but it's when you're you're comforting yourself. You're really just saying, hey, it's okay, right? It's okay to fail and it's okay to suck at things.
Yeah.
That's truly how we learn, but it's also it's how we grow our resilience. It's how we evolve as human beings and interconnected human beings, not just as a siloed human in this world. This is about relating to other people. And so this idea of extending grace to ourselves, you and I, we talk about this all the time. I know. And I know listeners, you guys you're not in these conversations, but it truly, we're constantly coaching our clients around, hey, watch those words that you use. Be so careful with yourself, because your subconscious is listening to that language, whether it's inside your head or you're saying it out loud or you're driving in the car and you're beating yourself up. Watch what you say to yourself. And you're so right. We are so quick to extend other people grace. Hey, it's okay. I understand. You've been under a lot of stress lately. I understand. I understand that things aren't really going your way. I understand. So how do we reflect that back to ourselves? How do we make that practice consistent and intentional to extend grace to ourselves?
One of the things we can do is, if you ask yourself why you do that, if you say, hey, why in the world do I extend grace to others when I don't extend it to myself? You may come up with some answers that may shock you. I mean, I don't know what the answers will be, but you do want to know why it's okay for you to extend said grace to one person or another person and not to yourself. Ask yourself the series of why questions, and you may find out that there's a reason for it. Get to that reason, because essentially you really do want to extend grace to yourself. I'll tell you, I saw the awesome John Maxwell speak one day, and he said when he was younger and he would speak and he'd have a great time, he'd feel really good. And if he had a bad time, he'd be real hard on himself. And then at some point he realized to balance that out, to make him kind of keep him grounded, when he had a great event, he would say, you're not that good. Almost as a way to kind of keep him from getting too high-minded. But when he crashed and burned, as even John Maxwell does from time to time, he would say, you know what? You're not that bad. And what it did was it helped elevate him in times when he needed to be elevated, but also kept him from being too high-minded in times when things were great. It kept him consistent. It kept him balanced. It kept him always focusing on serving and delivering instead of looking for that unattainable goal of perfectionism.
Yeah, keeping the perfectionism in check.
Yes, it's an unattainable goal. I mean, even if you get what is perfect today, perfect, it's a new word. I'm always coming up with these new random words. So even if you attain perfection today, who's to say what is perfect today? I can't talk today. Is going to be perfect tomorrow.
Yeah. Or from one person to the next.
Exactly.
It's totally subjective.
Totally subjective. So subjective, it's probably not the best goal to focus on. It's a moving target.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you say something's perfect for you, I may say, no, it's not for me, and vice versa. And so I think we do that quite a bit. Like, that was great. And like, no, it wasn't. So because our goals, what we think of as getting 100 on a test, may be different for both of us.
Yeah.
Or for any of you. So extend yourself some grace. And as long as you stay on that continuum of continuing to grow and evolve and elevate and become a better version of yourself, if you're 1% better this day, tomorrow, next week than you were last week, that's great. It's improvement. It's improvement. Yeah. And don't expect, this is not Insta sauce. This is not instant mashed potato. Add water, give it a few minutes and boom, it's set and ready. No, this requires some work. It requires some work, some mistakes. And that's okay, because in those failures, you can either stay there and wallow, like Amanda said last week, or you can actually grow and evolve and elevate in those spaces and learn. Instead of you make a minor mistake, it's better to make that minor mistake now than a few years from now, not making that mistake. And now it's a catastrophic mistake because you have grown and elevated in life to where that minor mistake is now a major mistake. But you learn it now. You make some adjustments and you grow and you continue to excel and exceed. Just food for thought.
Yeah. I want to jump back to the exercise that you mentioned,
yes,
which is to ask yourself why. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to clarify that for our listeners. Okay. And that is, when you ask yourself why, you're saying, hey, why do you not extend yourself grace, right? And so we literally want you to come up with an answer for that. Whatever the thought is that your brain offers up in that moment, write it down. So if that thought is, I don't deserve it, the next thing we want you to do, why don't you deserve grace? And then you come up with the thought that your brain offers you. And if you just sit with yourself for a moment and allow yourself to really just sit with that question, there will be thoughts that come up. You may not want to acknowledge them, but they will be there. And I call this the reaching into the dark corners of your conscious mind, right? And so people talk about shadow work and the deep dark corners and things of that nature. I don't mean it in this like deep, covered up, hidden darkness and like that. This means something evil. I actually mean it in terms of like, hey, sometimes you don't even want to acknowledge the simple ego that exists within our minds, within our beings, right? And sometimes we just sort of brush it under the rug. Well, we want you to uncover that. And so there will be an answer that your brain offers up. There will be a language, a word, phrase that your brain offers up to you when you ask yourself that question. So you ask, why do you not extend yourself grace? Well, I don't deserve it. Okay. Now you write that down. I don't deserve it. Why don't you deserve to offer yourself grace? And you will hear something. You will see something that shows up for you.
That is such a position of power. And I'll tell you, not only is it a position of power, not only is it theory, but Michelle, did you not do that to me? What was that, Friday? I mean,
I totally did.
You sure did. And it was tough because you made me go to places that I didn't want to go. And I didn't want to hear the answers. I didn't think I was going to like the answers. And that was a tough pill to swallow, but a necessary pill. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad that I followed through with it, but it helped me to get to the source of some pain, some stuck points, some challenges in my own life, and enabled me to find growth. Because until you unearth these things, you can't fix them. Sometimes if you don't find the root cause, the symptoms will always be there. So it was an opportunity for me to evolve and grow. And stepping in that thing is scary. I'm telling you, I'm a coach, and that stuff was not fun. It didn't feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't. I think you could tell that my energy was off, and not because of, and it's probably a bit of everything. Probably a little anger, shame. How dare you? How dare me? Why are you coming at me like this? Why am I even trying to go? This is getting hot. Turn the heat down. Like chill. Like what's this? I mean, really, there was a whole bunch of defensive things that went up. A whole bunch of walls, barriers, barricades. And I realized as you dismantle those, it was protecting, the ego was trying to protect itself. And getting to it really helped me move on and elevate in certain areas and just get to what is eating Gilbert Grape? What is eating Cheddy Matthews? What is it that core? And it's necessary work. And I'm not saying it's easy, but hey, no. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Going in that
growth is never easy.
It's never easy. It's totally opposite than the comfort zone. It's the total opposite. It doesn't feel warm and fuzzy.
And I also want to, acknowledge you for sharing that. And it's interesting as we go through this process too, because at the end of the day, when Cheddy and I do this work, it's not to say, hey, how you're showing up is wrong and we're going to fix it. It's more about living a conscious life, not allowing your old habits, your old patterns of thinking, your old limiting belief systems to continue to operate and sort of like have you living in this unconscious mode, right? So when I was taking him through this process at the end, the bottom line was, your choice is your choice. Choose it consciously. That is all. When we uncover these thoughts that have kept you in this place, it doesn't mean that you have to change those thoughts. It doesn't mean you have to change your actions. It just means that you acknowledge to yourself that I am choosing this for this reason. And it's not coming up with all of these, stories or other language to make yourself feel better about why you're choosing these actions. It's about, hey, I'm choosing this and I'm choosing it consciously. To be like, there's a very, very simple example in my life where I have a tendency to overindulge in sweets. And I know this is like taking it to a lighter level right now, which is fine. Like levity is fine. We all need it every once in a while, especially after this weekend. But
like life.
Yeah, Cheddy and I we both have a sweet tooth and we can go to town on some candy. Okay. Like it's a thing. And so, but rather than just unconsciously and just continue to eat the candy and continue to eat the sugar and the foods that we know aren't good and don't serve, our greater goals. It's actually just acknowledging with myself, I am choosing to eat this candy and I am choosing to eat this much candy. And I'm saying this out loud to myself, which sounds absurd for an adult to be saying this, but I could literally sit down with a bag of candy or, a bag of potato chips and just not even realize how much I ate, after I'm sitting here. It's being mindful. It's being conscious of my choices. And so even with this extension of grace, it takes, to bring it back to what we were talking about, it takes intention and conscious choice to extend that grace to ourselves, because it is not something that we are often taught at a young age. That not just the, hey, it's okay. It's true grace. It's I love you. And this is great. Like, this is gonna be okay. Your mantra, the things that you want going forward, it's loving on yourself. It's intentionally loving on yourself in a mindful and conscious way. That is the extension of grace to yourself. And that's what it takes is to be focused on it and choose it and be consistent with it.
I will tell you, at some point, this becomes natural. It becomes a thing that you do by habit. And in some areas of your life, you may have this mastered. And in other areas, it may be a stuck point. It may be more of a challenge. But we have to be aware of these things. And what I call it is being asleep at the wheel. I think for many years, I allowed myself to be asleep at the wheel. And when I finally woke up, I'm in the bushes, and I'm hitting trees, and I'm hitting light posts. And like, oh, what's going on? You wake up, and now I feel like I'm swerving back on the road, trying to figure out what in the world did I just do? And now I have to realize that I have to maintain consciousness, because I have to be responsible for the actions that I take and the decisions I make and the thoughts that I have. I cannot blame anyone for my thoughts and my actions. I have to own that. Good, bad, and ugly. Shameful, prideful, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, whatever it is, wherever it is on the spectrum from approval to disapproval or anywhere in that realm, you have to own the decisions you make. And if you don't like them, then change the decisions you make. Change them.
Well, and that speaks to another podcast that we'll be talking about in the future. That is like a good teaser for it, about being fully responsible, 100% responsible for your actions. But with that, it's when you reflect on the actions that you have taken, when you reflect on, even as we talked 2 weeks ago around, self-talk and the inner critic, and how we're trying to improve on that, and how we're trying to, be more proactive and be more positive with our self-talk. Even when we reflect and we realize, oh, shoot, I just went back to that old pattern of being. I went back to that, limiting belief, like, gosh darn it, I know better than that. Like, that's the kind of language that comes to mind. That's when you have to activate that conscious choice of saying, you know what, it's okay. I am learning. I am doing better. I am being better for others and for myself. And so choosing that kind of dialogue with yourself. So that is the extension of grace. That is loving on yourself and understanding that we're all learning beings and we're constantly learning.
And I'll tell you, I think part of the reason why I was averse to doing grace work on myself is because I thought if it was coddling. And I realized it's not coddling, because I don't coddle other people. But to myself, I thought it was coddling. What I realize now is it's empowering. It is liberating. It is inspiring, and it is refreshing. If somebody falls off a bike, if somebody falls over a hurdle, or they have some kind of a trip up, or something doesn't go the right way, if somebody who's helping them helps them up, encourages them, gives them a little pep talk, listen, it's going to be okay. This happens sometimes. They'll get back up and keep going.
Yeah.
So if we know that in other people's lives, wouldn't it be maybe safe to say that if we do it in our own lives, we'd probably get the same results? Because falling is not the issue. Staying down is the issue. Having a mistake or doing something that that didn't show your best self is not the issue. Staying there and dwelling in that space is the issue. So we have to get out of those spaces as quick as possible, because life is not a straight line. Sometimes you're going to hit peaks. Sometimes you're going to hit valleys. But guess what? You're still on that journey. So continue the journey. And if you're enjoying the high, enjoy the high. Save some of that energy for when things go low, because things will go low. Maintain that energy. Learn to manage that so you can get back to a high again, because there's ebbs and flows in life. And you have to extend grace to yourself in both of those times. In both of those times. We've got to be true to ourselves. We've got to be honest with ourselves. Not really true to ourselves. Well, yeah, that's always good. But more honest than true. Really get to the root cause of the things that are in your mind, because you got to remember, a lot of the way you think, feel, and act and believe, those are paradigms that were given to you. They were force-fed to you. And the issue is, a lot of stuff we were given is great. But I would venture to say, I'm going to be bold enough to say, society has changed from the time that you learned your paradigms. You probably got your paradigms when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I would say life has probably changed for you since then. Whether it's a decade later, whether it's 2 decades, 3 decades, 4, 5, life has changed a little bit. And if your paradigms haven't changed, your belief system hasn't changed, you may be operating in a different construct when things around you aren't operating in that space. And sometimes you start to realize, as I reflect in my own life, some of the paradigms that we had growing up were necessary for that time. They may not be necessary for life going forward. So you have to be brave enough to learn, unlearn, and relearn sometimes. And that requires a lot of grace, because if not, you can get very mad and blame people and society and this and that on where you are. But no, hey, we are where we are. This is not where I want to go in my life. I need to find a deeper meaning. I need to find my true North Star, my authentic self, whatever that may be. You've got to find that and extend yourself the grace that enables you to be empowered to move forward.
Yeah, I love that word liberating, because there is a tendency that when we get down on ourselves, right? I'm just going to use that phrase, like we come down on ourselves mentally, come down on ourselves emotionally, that we can really just sit in that space and ruminate there, right? And that rumination, that's what keeps us stuck. And so if we're always looking, or we desire, not always looking, but we desire to grow and we desire to evolve and we desire to improve, if we're in that space and that's what we want, then that rumination does not serve you. It keeps you in space, or it can even bring you back. It moves you backwards from where you want to be. So the extension of grace is about the liberation from that rumination. Okay.
Oh, I love it.
We need to move forward and we need to extend ourselves grace in order to free ourselves from that space. So everything that Cheddy just said that's what it's about. That's what it boils down to, is do not keep yourself chained up. Do not keep yourself stuck in that limiting belief, or, criticizing yourself or being negative because of a mistake you made. Yes, own up to it. Yes, take responsibility for it. And yes, offer yourself grace so you can move forward from it.
So funny how, as you're speaking, Michelle, I realize even the more how much I have used grace and have misconstrued it as being a thing of weakness, a thing of dependence, a thing of helping someone out when they're down. Oh, it is the total and absolute opposite. It is such a source of power. It really is. It is
Absolutely.
The corner man in a fight. It's like you're in a fight and that round didn't go your way. Many cornermen will go back. Many fighters will go back to that corner and they'll get some better advice. They'll get some encouragement. They'll get fired up a little bit and they'll go back out there and they'll win the fight. And that's what grace is. It's not beating somebody up after they just finished getting beat up. It's, what can we do different this time? You've got it. You know what to do. You have the skills. If you do this, this will probably work a little better. Try this. It's how you get back in there. It's how we keep going. It's how we stay in the fight. It's how we stay on the journey, how we stay on path or on track.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well put.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to ask though, did that analogy this time make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to ask because, I'll have an analogy and be like, wait, what? I don't get it.
I do. I do.
It's just funny to me. It's just funny when I'll see your facial expressions over the screen and I'm like, okay, she didn't get that one.
I say, try again.
I'm going through my analogy bank. I'm like, I have no more credit in my analogy bank. I've got nothing. So I hope my analogies are getting better. But if you don't understand my analogies, you got to reach out to us and let us know, hey, what are you talking about, Cheddy? What you said makes no sense. What is a corner man? What are you talking about? How, but let me know, because maybe I need to work on my analogies and my visualizations and my points of reference. So if I do, let me know. If you have any questions for us as well, let us know that too. Give us a shout out. Hey, I got a question about this. Or if you're going through something, if we can help, send us a line. Let us know how we can be of service and of value to you. And because here we are, we're bantering about things that we go through in our own lives and things that we have overcome, things that we are going through, things that we have seen others go through and others overcome. So we're just sharing things that we've seen and heard to help you grow. That's what we're here for. That's it.
Yeah. That's it.
So I hope you guys enjoy it. I got to tell you guys, I really enjoyed doing this. I feel like this is me living my highest and best purpose, is sharing this information so that like somebody on the street who's giving you directions can kind of help you go in a direction that makes sense. Not because we're gurus and we're at the destination saying, come on, no, hey, it's down that road. Let's go together down this road. That's all it is. We're trying to help people. We're trying to elevate, get people's consciousness and awareness up. And not only that, help people to stop living in the point of pain where they may have been stuck, or where they may be trapped, or where they just feel like they're mired in the misery of the memories of something negative that happened to them. I want you guys to understand that we can keep going. Take another step. You may be down, but you're not out. We've got a few more rounds left. Seconds out. Let's go.
Great. Yeah.
So that was awesome.
Thank you, Cheddy. No, I appreciate all of that. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, follow, share, and most importantly, use whatever adds value to your amazing life.
Remember, even if life puts barriers in our way, we are still moving forward. Sign in each Monday for a new episode of Winning Inside.
Thank you for listening to Winning Inside with Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to click the follow button, rate and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can connect with Cheddy and Michelle at winninginside.io. Keep listening. Another episode is coming soon.